Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for another edition of Two Peas in a Podcast. I'm Michelle Ralls, a licensed nutritionist, and joining me today is Deana Spencer. Deana, say hi.
Hi, how is everybody?
Right. How's everyone?
Right?
Happy
Hi,
holidays.
everybody. I know. I think that's why I'm got
That's
lots of elf duties to do. So, woohoo.
Oh,
But having fun.
I've still got elf duties to do. So,
Yeah.
duties are not done yet at all. So, getting there.
Yes.
So, but I want to thank everyone for joining us here on our Two Peas in a Podcast. We appreciate everyone throughout the course of 2022, as this will be our last podcast for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you've hit the subscribe button and have joined us here, because Deana and I have some amazing topics coming up for 2023. We would love to have you come and support us here. So hit the subscribe button. Don't miss a single podcast here on Two Peas in a Podcast. All right. So Deana, today we are going to be talking about 10 healthy tips
for the holidays.
Yes, for the holidays. That's right. We're going to talk about this.
Big topic, I think. So
I think it's a huge topic. I think it's a great topic for this time of year, because so many individuals during this time of year are stressed. They really
no way
not at all. No, but it happens. Sadly, we get all the above. The winter weather sets in, we get depressed, we get seasonal affect disorder. And today's podcast is going to be very fun.
Yes.
We may get into some topics that kind of take us some places, but guys, let me tell you, these tips are going to be wonderful. They're going to be full of information, and we are just going to hit them full force straight ahead, right, Deana?
Yes. Right. I think too, like having a healthy mindset during this time is super important. That doesn't always mean, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but just kind of, it doesn't always mean about food. There's a lot going on. And so we're going to hit on a lot of different things that maybe you didn't think about, or just even shift, I think is a good word, to kind of get off of, kind of the caloric intake top 10 type of situations going on, instead just having a very well-rounded holiday experience. So we're going to dive right in here. So take it away.
So let's go into the very first topic, which is healthy mindset. So, like you said, it's a healthy, situation, not a stressful situation. That's the way we want to look at it. We want to look at the fact of going into this, and again, like you said, not caloric intake. We're not going to look at this as a caloric intake level. We're looking at this as just having fun. As you know, we did some research. On average, you only gain about 3 pounds over the holidays. So what's 3 pounds, Deana?
Right.
Seriously, what does 3 pounds mean to you?
Honestly, it's nothing. It'll fall off. Because I just feel like it's such a time to celebrate that I think we get lost in the weeds sometimes when we're so focused on like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to undo everything that I worked so hard to do. And that's not the case. You'll bounce right back. Doesn't mean you have to go hog wild. But I do think like having a different mindset and understanding that those 3 pounds are really not anything. And it's also just a time, which we're also going to get in later, but don't let yourself not celebrate with family and friends because you're trying to stick to this strict idea that you can't have that drink or you can't have that piece of pie or whatever it is. But again, we're not only going to hit on those things, but I think it's just a great topic to explore, because I feel like when you and I were discussing this as a possible topic for a podcast, a lot of the things that we pulled up, kind of just looking at different ideas and research, was that a lot of it was so strict mindset and so micromanagement that it was such a turnoff. It was like, well, don't stand. It was weird. It was like, don't stand next to the cookie table. Like, if you're really going to micromanage your holidays that way, that just sounds like a miserable time. So just kind of keeping that in the back of your head. But, you and I had talked about rules being counterproductive as well.
Right.
So again, we're going to kind of hit a lot of these topics and just having a overall rounded mindset that is healthy, good and just it's the end of the year. It's the time to celebrate, so
Absolutely. It should be a time
maybe
to celebrate. Families coming together. You haven't
Mhm.
seen your family for a while. Why put yourself in a situation where you cannot have that cookie or have that piece of pie or have that drink or
Mhm.
eat 2 plates if you want to, because it's not
Well,
going to harm anything.
no, and you probably earned it. You
Absolutely.
did.
You earned
Like
it.
it's
You've earned
like
it. Go for it. You've done it
it's
all year
not like
long. You've
and
watched, you've micromanaged yourself all year long. Stop.
well,
Stop.
that I think it's kind of like oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought, but I think it's just like having that moment, and it's not necessarily that you deserve it per se, but you don't do it all the time.
Right.
Because I think that's one of the things you and I talked about, which we'll probably talk about later as well. But if you are that concerned about it, that if it's only like this time of year, why are you actually that concerned about it? And the other thing is that if you are doing it all the time, that's really the main concern, and that's not going to change over a 2-week time frame through the
Let's talk
holidays. So
about
that's
that.
a different issue, right? So yeah.
Let's do that. Let's just go ahead and tap into that right here, right now.
Mhm.
So if you, like you said, have all of a sudden come down to December and said, now's the time to actually watch what I'm eating,
Mhm.
why have you chosen now? Why not
That's a good
in the
question.
year?
Mhm.
And why didn't you make that healthy eating habit throughout the earlier part of the year? Why December? Why does everybody choose December?
I think in some ways there's a couple things that pop into my head. Is one is self-sabotage. So
Absolutely.
depending on the mindset that you have, or the healthy or lack thereof healthy mindset, that you could actually be self-sabotaging yourself. But the other thing is that there also could be, because there's added pressure, that there's going to be more things to eat that are we're going to say unhealthy, which I don't like that word, but then that way you go, oh my God, like there's just more pressure to get healthy, or there's more pressure to kind of step up and like do stuff. And so that could be another reason why all of a sudden there's this desire, or now, I got to take care of business type of a thing. So I think there's several things that could almost be play mind games with you a tad.
I agree.
So just kind of be aware of why you're doing it. That's such a great question. Or why you're choosing it right now, if you are choosing it right now. Now, there are people who have been kind of, working on it all. Don't let the 2-week time break or the time frame here feel like it's going to be detrimental to everything you've put into it. So again, whether you're starting now or it's a New Year's, I'm not going to say resolution. I hate that word.
We don't use that word.
We don't, that's a 4-letter
Right.
word. So, yeah.
No.
So, but that's a whole other topic. But
Yeah.
if you're planning on changing your habits for 2023, I'm not saying don't start now. I'm just saying don't be so micromanagement with yourself right now. Enjoy your time. So whatever that means for you, and again, that's a matter of perspective. But don't torture yourself, and
And
don't
that's
set
what I want
yourself
to
up
point
for
out too.
failure.
Yeah. Don't torture yourself. But here's the other part is that I want you to ask yourself, why now? Why
Mhm.
haven't I done it throughout the year? And I'm not saying that now's not a great time. Now is a great time. If you're thinking about it, you're serious about it, now is a
Mhm.
great time. I mean, I've got phone calls coming in from clients that are saying, hey, I'd like to, get started in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
What's your schedule for January? Why are you waiting a couple of weeks? I've got some time right now. Why don't we get started?
Actually, that's a great point. I kind of want to point that out, because people are not working as much.
Mhm.
They have holes in their schedule, and they feel like they can actually start tackling it. So that is actually a good reason as well. Like I know for myself, I'm like, oh, I can go to the gym like in the next 2 weeks because I'm not working as much. I have these bigger pockets of time and I feel good about that because that's what I normally do or want to do. So I would think that's another good reason why people might get in the mindset of wanting to do it now, because they actually have the time to focus on it, which
But
is
what's going to happen
great
after
thing.
the first of the year when they go back to work, get into their schedules, and now all of a sudden they're making an excuse?
So, and we can actually do, I'm just going to throw it out there, a podcast, which I think you and I talked about,
We talked
on
about
how to create a plan.
it. We talked about it. It
We
could
got
be
to take,
forthcoming, guys. So just hold on.
yes, we got to take the ideas and literally learn how to reverse engineer things so that you're successful. So that's a whole other dealio. But if you do want to start now, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. We'll probably be doing a podcast in January about how, I think that, and then even a follow-up probably in February. But learning how to plan your goals out literally so that you are successful in those things. It's not willy-nilly. So,
so stay tuned, because that will be, it will be coming. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, guys. So Deana, let's move into the next top 10, and which is giving service and serving others. So actually, if you tapped into our last podcast, you got a hint of where this is going to go, because now we're going to take it a little further. So Deana, I want you to talk about giving and serving. Why is it so important during the holidays?
I think that, you know, we have traditions and things like that, but I'm just going to kind of hit a little bit on the topic from last month. But when you're at a meal, when you're with family, it doesn't even have to be family. It could be your friend family or what have you. It doesn't matter. Whoever you're with, there comes a time when you're actually serving others, whether you're getting the plates out, whether you're cooking a meal or bringing something to the table. That could be silverware, could be a dish that you prepared or something like that, but you're still serving others and you're providing something to them. You're honoring them. I'm going to just use that word. So I think that that's important, but also the giving. So there's a lot about, that's a whole other research project, but giving, you know, obviously it does something within us that helps us feel better, you know, in the long run, I think. But
well, it's a great thing to, you know, again, give, like you said, you know, when you're giving something to someone, how do you feel?
Right.
It makes you feel good. You haven't seen him in a while. You're serving, you're, you know, saying, hey, you know, here's some bread. Would you like that? Or can I get you a glass of tea? Or can I get you a drink? These are things that just make you feel good when you haven't seen people in a while.
So keep that in mind, though. But even if it's people you've been with and seen every day, the mindset shift is really important too, because that should be happening every day in general. But so to give those warm, fuzzy feelings every day, you have an opportunity to do that every day, which is kind of what we talked about in our last podcast. But the other thing too, I think when you're serving others is it exposes you to other people's lives, because let's just say you are serving meals to the homeless or something. You're tapping into a world that you're typically not in.
Right.
You're starting to understand maybe what they've gone through. Get your mindset off of you. So you can actually focus on other, because a lot of times we can be so muddled up in here about what's going on with yourself.
Right.
And it kind of breaking out of that, which is why it's important to serve your friends, your family, and obviously yourself occasionally when it's needed. Because if you don't ignore yourself, I want to touch on that too, because if you're not taking care of yourself, whatever that means, again, it could be a million things, you're not going to benefit the people around you. So I think that that's also something to kind of think. That's another topic you and I had discussed before too, about service, but you also need to give back to yourself, you know.
Self-care.
I just think it's so funny because I really don't like to use self-care, but it really is self-care, but it's so overused that it's just kind of like, but you need to pay attention to yourself, like what your needs are.
Mental health day.
Right. Go buy yourself something.
Go buy yourself something. Go treat yourself.
Wrap it up. So you can
wrap it up. Yeah, I mean, make it fun. It's supposed to be a great time of year to have fun, enjoy each other. And I also want to point out too, let's keep this in mind. Remember that family is not always blood. Family is whoever you choose to have as family. So don't feel so obligated. And I know we're going to talk about this here in just a few minutes, but don't feel so obligated to have to put yourself in front of the family if that's really not where you're at. If you've got other individuals that you call family, go for it. Make those your family, you know, bring that, you know, celebration to them, because obviously they're the people you feel comfortable with. They're the ones you call, you know, friends, family, whatever. Make that your people, and don't feel obligated to put yourself in situations that you're not wanting to put yourself in. So we're going to talk more about that here in just a minute, though.
Well, I'm laughing because right before we started the podcast, I was telling Robert that I said, we're going to be doing our podcast, the 10 healthy tips. And he said, well, one tip is not to, he goes, don't go to your families or something like that. It was just kind of funny. I mean, he was joking around, obviously, you know, he goes and sees his family, but I just started giggling because it's a thing. Like, you know, there's sometimes people don't like the holidays because they're just like,
Right.
oh my gosh. So we're going to get more into that later because it really is an issue for some people. And I think it's important to talk about that on ways to either, you know, kind of shift the narrative on that for you or to deal with feelings about that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But
Right.
yeah, so.
All right. So our third tip is choosing your splurges. And so this is going to go with food and money. We're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about money. Okay, guys, I want you to understand that you don't have to be obligated to spend a lot of money during the holidays. This is supposed to be a celebration time. Sometimes just showing up means a whole lot to anyone and everyone. I could care less if you showed up with a present. As long as you show up, I'll feed you. Just come. You know, that's my way of doing things. But we can definitely get into a situation where we feel very obligated over the holidays when it comes to Christmas time. And we feel, I mean, I kind of feel this pressure as it is, you know, 3 children. What am I going to get them? How do I, you know, get this done? It's getting down to the wire. I still have not finished. I mean, I haven't even finished my grandchildren. So, and I haven't even started on my children. So where does this all end? Where do I say I'm done and everybody just come and I'll feed you? And that's good enough. And there's just so much pressure during this time frame. But then let's look at the food side of things. And Deana, I want you to crack out into this. But under the food side of things, you know, I'm literally fixing because I've got one over here that she eats this way, or I've got this one over here. Well, they can't have this. So now I've got this spread of food that I've got to do a million different ways because I've got a million different individuals who can't eat this or can't have that or can't do this. So let's hear your thoughts, Deana. What's your thoughts on, start with the money side of it?
Well, I think, okay, so the first thing that popped into my head was, well, everything you said, but I was thinking about, I coach. So a lot of times during this year, I get gifts from my students. And I'll tell you what, my favorite gifts that I get are the ones that they hand make.
Oh, absolutely.
So I have an adult skater who just painted it's a triangle canvas, and it's a figure skater doing a layback. But like you can just feel like the time and the energy that goes into something that is made.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of things like from students that they've made me, and it is it's literally my favorite thing ever. Like, I don't care.
You don't have money. You're saying a great handmade gift is an awesome opportunity to show the love for that individual. You know, just it feels so much more special.
It feels different than getting a Starbucks card or like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate every single thing that I get. Like, it's all I'm saying is it's an option. So if you have something you're dabbling in or that you're very, very good at, because for instance, my aunt has been taking up watercoloring, and you know, my mother passed away very, very early when I was about 23, and she's my mother's sister. So when she started taking up watercoloring, I just talked to her a few days ago, and I said, I would love to have a painting from you because I know it's from her.
Right.
And she says, well, what would you like? And I said, I don't care. As long as it comes from your heart, I can care less what it's about. But I think keeping that in mind too, you have a lot to offer somebody, not just your checking account through, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
You can also, yeah. And I just think like also an experience, like going to, you know, I'm going to take you to a park or like, let's go for a walk or whatever it is. Like, don't always, it's very difficult because I feel like this season is very attached monetarily to our idea of it. So it can really be hard on our mindset, our guilt and everything else, and the obligatory feelings that we get, as well as with food. I'm going to touch on both sides of this because one, I think that there's a little bit of a catch-22 in here, because I feel like, yes, it's good to honor yourself and your food, I'm going to say needs or wants, I'm going to say, versus needs,
Right.
because some of it is a need due to allergies and things like that.
Right.
But I also think that there are times that you can acquiesce a little bit to maybe honoring that person's efforts and making a meal for you or what have you. And I'm not saying that if you're a vegan that you have to eat meat per se. I'm just saying kind of go in with an open mind maybe, or like, again, somebody might have made you pie and you're trying to lose weight. Accept the pie. It's not, it's
Gonna kill
you know what I'm
anything.
saying. It's just
It's
an
not gonna-
example, but yeah. So it's just kind of those types of things where I feel like when people have expended energy to encourage you, I think it's important to find a way to honor that, because that's your way of celebrating with them. Because in our last podcast, we talked about how food is very celebratory, and so I think it's like pretend.
Why not look at it from a nourishment side of things? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're in this mindset where you have to watch what you're eating, let's
Mm-hmm.
stop that thought process right there. But let's
Correct.
look at the fact that food is nourishment. And you're sitting around your family, your friends, whomever it is that you're with at this point in time. But look at the nourishment that's actually coming from that spread.
Correct.
Spread. Look, and I'm trying to get you to visualize in a nourishment love setting, because you're gonna sit here and you're gonna tell yourself, "Oh, I can't eat that right now." Sure, yes, you can, because number one, it was made with love. Number two, or if it wasn't, that's okay. Just put yourself in this mindset, that it is a nourishment of love at this time of year, that you really should just accept it and, enjoy every bit of it as it's going, in the mouth, down the chute, whole 9 yards. It's a great feeling to just be in the moment and be nourished.
Yes.
From all levels, to include the food.
I agree. And I do want to hit on one other point with finances and food, is that don't forget that you have control over your life. Because we talked about obligation in these areas. You have full control over what you're doing, which is good in the sense that you can eat it, not eat it. You can spend it, not spend it. But going into it with a healthy mindset of encouragement or a need versus a want, like those types of things. And you have control over giving homemade gifts. You have control over spending money for somebody. Like, it is in your control completely. Yeah. So because you and I had talked about food pushers, and there's also people who make you feel obligated to spend a lot of money.
Yes, they do.
So yes, they do. Learning your boundaries, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about later. I can't remember. I'm sure it's going to be touched on. However, knowing where you draw the line in the sand in a very mature and respectful, loving way can really help make your holidays better for you and for everybody around you. Because when you give a good reason as to why you can't do something, people typically understand. And if they don't, that's another issue.
That's on them. That's not on you.
So. Right. So I just think like going in and understanding where your limits are and being okay with that, because that's honoring yourself. That goes back to the last point that we talked about taking care of yourself. You also need to honor yourself. Like stop thinking it's a bad thing. Right. It's not. By you sticking to your guns and saying, this is what I'm going to do, this is how much I'm going to spend, etc., and trusting that whom you're giving to is going to respect you and is going to feel honored and feel, cared about by you in those ways. There's, I think that we just need to start reframing and changing our mindset about certain things. When we're visiting,
we're making changes. Now is the perfect time to do that.
Correct. Yeah. So, and we're also, I think in a way, it's kind of like, by us talking about it, it's almost like giving you the green light. It's okay to do. Because I think it depends on the family structure and even your friend structure sometimes. But just know that when you get down to brass tacks, you have control over your life, and you can take that You can take that sentence into 2023 if you want, but just kind of, like just honoring yourself as well as others at the same time is totally possible. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So next up on our topics was choosing your environment. And we've kind of tapped on it, but we can dig a little deeper here if you want to. I know that not everybody has, like I said, good family home settings, and I totally understand that. Sometimes, you don't want to be at the table with somebody, totally get it. But it's a time to come together and remove whatever was in the past or in the setting at the time, because it's here to taking a time to how do I want to say this, put yourself in a healthier situation. Like we said, we're going into 2023, this is the holidays. And if it's a detrimental situation, if it's something that's mentally going to put you in a worse situation, then remove yourself. Families who you make that family to be. So if that's not going to be a good situation for you, then don't put yourself there.
right.
Choose to do what you like Deana said. You can do as you please at this point, because you have the right to say, this is the way I want this to be, or this isn't the way I want it to be. So, and I know environments are important. Because we all know that the holidays are very stressful, and during the holidays, the biggest thing that comes out of holidays is depression and anxiety, which we're going to tap on that a little more later. But this environment here that you're choosing can also cause those situations to be more erupted. So the less that you put yourself in that situation, the better off you will be in how you handle things going into the next situation. So anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I think that sometimes we don't like the holidays because a lot of the experiences that we have start accumulating to outweigh the good experiences. So I think it's important for you to plan your own holiday, meaning there are times you are going to have to go somewhere that you're kind of like, oh God, you know what I mean? And let's just keeping it real. I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm just saying if you do have a place that you can go to, there's a couple of ways I feel like you can manage. I'm going to say manage that. Don't stay all day. Don't stay all night. Limit your time. I'm going to go there for X amount of time.
That's a great point. You should really tap in on that. That's a great point, because limit your time. Say, I'm only going to go for half an hour. You made your appearance, you gave your love, and now you can freely walk away and be okay. You did what you intended to do. And boundaries, like we talked about, boundaries, that's a huge thing. Being able to still step into the picture, but step out of the picture because you're still in control of the picture.
Exactly. And I think too, don't again, taking back your power and creating your own experiences. So for instance, if people don't have family, I think it's important for people to have or create their own traditions. It could be with another family member. It could be with your friends. It could be by yourself. I think I shared before, I think at the last podcast, but every Thanksgiving morning, I spend a couple of hours writing my goals. That's my tradition for myself. And nobody gets in the way of that. I forewarned. I was like, this is my morning. Nobody bother me. I'm in my jammies. I have my coffee, and I literally sit and write down. I go over my previous goals and go into my new ones. But that's my tradition that I've done for years. And it's my time, and I look forward to it every year. It doesn't have to be huge, but maybe it could be going for a walk by a lake or a river, on a holiday morning, or something that you enjoy. What could be anything, but something that creates a time that you look forward to, that could be with yourself and or with other people, but that just creating those traditions. It could be planning a party at your own house and inviting who you want there, and that becomes a tradition. But I'm just saying, don't wait to be invited somewhere. Kind of, again, taking control of your own environment, your own situations is super important during this time.
Right.
And also another option is to make the decision to serve others.
Right.
So even if you may be going to an event that you're not super lit up about, change. I keep using the word reframe. Change the mindset of going there and serving others. So it could be, a short amount of time as well. It doesn't have to be an all day or all nighter, but maybe you go there with the intention of serving. So bringing something that you made or something and giving to them, and then maybe still shortening that time a little bit, but you are still, providing an offering
Yeah.
to that situation. So those are a couple ways that I see this, that could be super beneficial, super helpful, and even could create bonding times when you go in and change your mindset about these types of things, and knowing that you're in control instead of being, I'm going to say, victimized by them. And and I'm going to throw this out there. It does take guts to do it. I'm not going to lie. Because I remember I would always spend all day long with my family. And I realized as I was getting older that I never really had time for friends. So there was times when I would like check out early and go to dinner or something, even on Christmas Day.
There's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of people do have that mindset that, oh, I can't skip out on my family.
Right.
Yes, you can. I mean, you've done your time and you have chosen to, be with them for that period of time that you've chosen to. And I totally get that. But there are some times that it gets to be too overwhelming. I mean, I've got many examples of that, where I literally can only handle a certain situation for a certain period of time. And it's usually about an hour. And then I have to check out. And that's when I need then to move into my time, because that was very overwhelming. It was very stressful. I'm done with that situation. And now I need to get my mindset into a completely different frame. And to do that, typically I will either go by myself and do something, or I will put myself in a friend situation and just get my mind out of that toxic habit that constantly keeps being present whenever I have to do these things. So you have to make a decision, set your boundary, set your destination, and don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty for wanting to be with friends or wanting to be, where you feel more comfortable.
Well, let's go back to using the word obligated.
Right.
Because I think that's the thing. Now, I think during the holidays there is some obligation, I think. But again, it's kind of repeating the idea and the fact that it's about managing your boundaries, like you just talked about, and accepting and knowing that you have power over your decisions in your life. So you're in control.
About that just really quickly, because I've got, I've got 3 kids. All of them have somebody in their life. So as a parent, they feel obligated to be at my house on Christmas Day. And I have to remind them that they have to remember that they have other people in their lives. So they don't have to feel obligated to come to my house on Christmas Day. We can do Christmas, we can do Thanksgiving, we can do anything any other time. It doesn't have to be on that day.
That's what I did this year. I've had 2 Thanksgivings and I'm going to have 2 Christmases.
And you're doing it on your own grounds, on your terms. So that's the way it really should be. And you'll be much happier that you did that versus, feeling obligated to do it. Because then you're not happy with yourself because you put yourself in a position where you weren't thrilled to be there.
Correct.
So that's where I want people to understand, to take that stress off of them during this time. Don't put any more added stress on yourself.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate. Some people might say, well, it's super stressful to like stand up for yourself. So I agree. However, I think that once you find that you do it, I think it's stressful while you're doing it, but I think right afterwards you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did that.
It's very freeing. It's very freeing.
It is very freeing. Like when you actually
I totally get it. You're right. It's very stressful to stand up for yourself and go,
but like you feel that sense of freedom, and it's just the best thing ever. And it's empowering, I guess is a great word, because it's that free, like you said, it's freedom, because now you don't feel chained to something or chained to somebody where you're like, you break the chink, you break the links off or what have you. And,
but some people might come back and say, well, now I've opened up another can of worms that I really didn't want to deal with. And maybe that's true.
It could be. And you know what, in all honesty, if you feel like this holiday time is not the time or the place to do it. But if it's bothering you, that maybe start setting your boundaries after and creating a new environment for you in 2023.
Absolutely.
By kind of evaluating certain situations and setting boundaries up as you go throughout the year instead of just kind of hammering everybody at the holidays.
Right.
You know, but I think too, but I simply remembering though that you have the ability to make those choices is freeing in and of itself. So I think that that's a really great point to kind of take home, that you don't have to sit here and make all these massive adjustments and change your person, you know, change everything that's going on right now.
No.
It's just more of a reminder that it's okay to
take one step
check it. Baby steps, but also like
steps.
it's okay. Like sometimes I think we blow things out of proportion. Oh my gosh, they're gonna hate me. Oh my gosh, they're not gonna like their gift. Oh my gosh, I didn't spend enough money on them. Oh my, you know,
right.
And you know, so
it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. Just
right.
We want everyone
just eat the cupcake. Eat the
right.
cupcake.
The cupcake. Go eat the pie. Go put the ice cream on top with some Cool Whip on top of that. So
right.
Go for
and
it.
more Cool Whip. Yes. So just
more of the
it's
Cool
okay.
Whip
Yeah.
for me. I'm good. So love that puppy. But we definitely want people to take away from this podcast that take your baby steps. Take this all in, but start where you need to start.
Yeah.
Don't just start right then, right now, and go full force, because now is maybe not the time to tap into all of this. Listen, write your notes, and take your steps, because we're here to help. That's for sure. All right. So moving along, and before we move along, I wanted to say something about gifting and so forth, just really quickly. So I have an individual that I follow on Instagram, and she had the most great idea, having a new baby that made the third baby. So money is a little tight right now, right? New baby, baby has some health issues, so you know, got some things that they got to deal with, right? But she had an amazing idea. She got a babysitter for 3 kids. She turned around and she created it was 5 different areas that her husband could choose. So she had 2 cards. They had 2 options. So one was, where would you like to eat your breakfast? And he would pick. And so she took him. Where would you like to go? Where would you like to go? Just for some time for us. And she had 2 options. He chose. And he couldn't see him. He just picked a card.
Kind of like the hair thing.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was right. It was great, you know. And then she just went down the line. It was simple. It wasn't a lot that she spent, but it was enough for them to spend time together.
But I want to point out that she created an experience.
She did.
So that's why I was saying, like, maybe, hey, I want to take you for a walk here, or I want to take you to this place. There's so many ways to give to somebody that it's not always wrapped up in a bow. But like to provide an experience instead of like like here's your gift type of a thing.
Right.
I think those are even more special moments sometimes. So don't underestimate the power of giving that type of a gift. Like I said, my homemade gifts, I cherish them. They're all over my house from the years that I've been coaching and stuff like that. And the cool thing is about those types of things is that when you look at them, you know, that, or you like, you know, you look back on certain things, that memory, it's very tangible, that memory, and you remember who gave it to you and when they gave it to you and all those kinds of things. And even those experiences where my husband or my wife or my girlfriend or boyfriend or what have you, I remember one year when they did this for my gift.
Right.
Like, you know, so I think it's pretty cool to kind of keep that in mind, that
if you're a parent, hold on to all of those kids as little trinkets, because I've got them all. I've got every homemade gift my children have given me. So you can imagine over a period of 10 years with 3 children.
Oh, I have popsicle stick ornaments from my nephews when they were small.
Yeah.
So,
popsicle sticks. I've got the picture houses with the popsicle sticks, and I've got the styrofoam ornaments and glitter and everything. Oh yeah, I've got that.
Yep. And you probably remember, like,
I do. I remember exactly when they gave them to me. They're dated. They're, notated with their age and so forth. And so, and I've created that tradition with my grandboys. So my grandbabies have been doing the same thing. We did Thanksgiving. Now we've done Christmas. So we'll do Valentine's Day. We'll do New Year's as well. I've got some things for New Year's that we're going to do. So, and I've time stamped everything. So hold on to those. They're precious,
Well, one thing too. Yeah, I was going to mention this because my tree is filled with ornaments that have been given to me. It's rare that I buy ornaments for myself. So almost every ornament that I have is from somebody. So just kind of throwing that out. That's a tradition. So we do stockings. And so every person that I do a stocking for gets an ornament every single year. And so that's also a really great, inexpensive way to start a tradition with a friend. That every year you just, like, I've had friends where we've actually mailed our ornaments every year because that's just kind of what we do. So it's inexpensive. You can make them, you can buy them, it doesn't matter. But again, it's just kind of a very fun tradition because when you hang it on your tree, you're like, oh, my friend gave that to me.
Right.
And this is why. It could be a fun one. It could be, it could be one that, oh, this reminded me of you, or what have you. So it's I have some funny ones. I've got some beautiful ones, etc. So I've had people make me out of wood carving figure skates.
Oh, that's cool.
Hanging on my tree. So it's, a lot of cool stuff on my tree. So
that's the best part. And that's what I want everybody to get out of this podcast is how celebratory it really can be. Take the good out of it, and let's remove all this negativity, and let's go into 23 with this positivity. So,
right.
All right. So moving on, we have, I had not the food, but I know I missed part of that. So
it's visit the people, not the food.
Visit the people, not the food. That's what it was.
So yeah.
Visit the people.
Visit the people. I think obviously we, again, in our last podcast, we talked about how food is very, it's a bonding experience, I think, with people. So don't underestimate the power of that, but also don't just think that your season is all about the food. We talked a little bit about maybe feeling obligated to always eat. But if you go there with the, right, it's true.
I just had this vision. I did. I just literally had this vision of somebody just stuffing their face like the whole entire time and not really like talking to anybody. Like, oh, that's nice. They could just do this all day. So
it's funny because this topic reminds me of our last podcast because we talked about sometimes food will actually bring people to you.
Right.
And vice versa, because it is such a bonding time. So it's like, even if people don't necessarily know you well, they'll go, oh, is there food? Like I always tease, like during, football season when the Super Bowl hits, I'm like, well, is there going to be wings? Like I'm only going for the hot wings.
What's up with the wings? Why is there always going to be wings at Super Bowl parties?
I said I show up for the food, but it's just kind of a point of that, just valuing and honoring your time. Like, again, food can be a bonding experience and bring people together.
Right.
But as well, I think the big point that you and I had talked about earlier was don't demonize the food, though.
Right.
I think that was kind of more what we were leaning towards, because it's just kind of like, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go because there's going to be all this food, and you're really trying to watch what you eat, don't go for the food, go for the people. Go for the experience of that and the encouragement and you encouraging other people. So again, it's really rewriting your mindset and restructuring the way that you're thinking about things to go in with a healthier mindset, and reframing, right?
Let me give you an example of that. So I had a networking Christmas party last week. And I hadn't ate all day long. Seriously. I was really going to save myself to eat, at the networking event. But when I got there, I was just so interested to talk to everybody because I hadn't seen everybody in over a month. And we usually meet twice a month. So I totally forgot about eating. It just didn't really resonate that I needed to sit and eat, or I needed to take that moment to, gather around with everybody to eat. And for the most part, we literally just grabbed something small and put it on our plates, but they hardly got touched because we were too busy chatting with each other because we hadn't seen each other. So it was just so nice. And you can get into these settings if you really put your mind frame there,
Right.
once you got there, it was a complete different atmosphere. You wanted to chat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could you have a drink and maybe more alcohol was consumed than maybe should? But I'm just saying that you can get into those situations, be mindful of that as well. However, the people was the reason why I was there. It wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, the food, I brought food. Yes, I did. I brought some chili, some vegan chili. But we didn't need, I mean, the food wasn't necessary. You could just tell that people were just so excited to talk to each other, just to be back together because we hadn't seen each other in a while. So,
Right.
very nice to go and speak with people. And so, keep that in mind that, people
Yeah.
sometimes can really bring out some things in you that maybe you didn't realize. And food wasn't really necessary. So, if you're sitting there and you're demonizing the food, have a chat, speak to
With
somebody.
with yourself, even like, you need to calm down.
Right. You need to
girly
maybe
girl.
well, just put yourself in a different mind frame because you can easily do that. You can easily put yourself in a different setting and just,
Well, I
make
want to hit on the opposite end
yourself
of that. I want to hit on the opposite end of that too,
okay.
because I think like there's also maybe an event that's maybe, let's just pretend it's a work party and you're like, like you might be one of those people that kind of work in the, in the cubicle who don't talk to a whole lot of people.
True.
But let's just pretend you're going and you're like, but sometimes you are going for the food. Okay. Because, food is a connection, right? We all eat, obviously, and usually it's a social time. So if you're nervous about going somewhere, I just wanted to throw this out there. If you're in an environment that you're feeling a little nervous about, not necessarily that you don't want to go, but you're like, I don't really know anybody, or that type of thing. The first thing that I always tell myself is ask questions, get to know someone, ask what they do for fun. Find something that you can connect with. And honestly, if you don't do the same things, they might be doing something that's completely, wow, I didn't know you did that.
Right.
I mean, like when you talk to people
Get to
and
know
you're
people.
like, yeah, and you find out their interests and things like that, it can open up a whole other world for you. So it's almost an adventure. Like if you go in and you grab your plate of goodies and,
Make it a
and if
treasure
you,
hunt.
right. And so that's the first thing that I do. And people want to, I'm not going to say they want to talk about themselves, but it feels good that someone says, hey, what do you like to do for fun? Because I highly doubt a lot of people get asked about themselves. So when you go in there and you're inquisitive about somebody, I think it's super encouraging. People light up. They really go, wow, like this person, one can hold a conversation, but they're actually interested in me.
Right.
So I think that that's another way to kind of give back and also get your jitters down a tad if you're feeling nervous about going maybe to a work party or a party that you don't know a lot of people. It's a great way to kind of just break that down for yourself and just enjoy your time. So I think it's a good way to kind of approach things. So kind of just something I wanted to throw out there.
No, that's great. I mean, you're right. Going to a work party sometimes can be very nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
Very nerve-wracking, and a lot of people are afraid to eat when they go.
Yeah, and drink. Yeah.
Afraid or drink.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I really, should. A lot of people don't want to sometimes show who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, in a nutshell. So they get so nervous, they get so wrapped up in their head. And it's just like, hey, you've been around these people, and I get it. Maybe you're the cubicle person. Maybe you don't see a lot of people in your area. Maybe you don't get to converse with them, but take the opportunity to ask because you'd be surprised. The more they will turn around and ask you what you do too. And it can be very rewarding in the conversation. So don't let food, though, be the part that keeps you from, conversating and things like that. If you're more grateful to put food in your mouth and not talk, okay, I get it.
Right.
But, try to open up and, just have a great time. And I know that can be hard, especially at company functions. So
yeah,
been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So can I throw one more thing about that? One thing you and I talked about, and I'm just going to hit on this briefly, is, or you know what, maybe we hit on that later. Hold, please. I'm going to check. Yeah, I'll talk about it later. Never mind.
All right, we will do that then.
I don't want to repeat myself, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about not feeling guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I understand we can feel guilty in so many different ways here. So where would you like to start with that one? Feeling guilty in what department?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm gonna gosh, there's so many thoughts. Well, let's just talk about food. Let's get that out of the way
Okay.
because I think we did touch on this, so I think it'll be a quick little
Maybe a great
combo.
reminder.
Great reminder, like just it doesn't mean you have to eat everything, but it also means you don't have to like micromanage your food either. I think it's just a time to make your own decisions. It's a time to dive, kind of like dig in a little bit and enjoy yourself. Um, it is a time for cupcakes and cakes and people make cookie trays for people as gifts. And I think it's a great time to just, honestly, when they say people cook with love, it's true. Like there's an energy that goes into it, which I think Michelle and I've talked about that too, maybe doing a
We talked
podcast.
about in our last
Yeah.
podcast because, nourishment comes from the love of you making the food. So when you put your love into that food, it has a completely different taste to it. It has a completely different feel to it when it comes, from someone who made it with love. I mean, I don't know if anybody's really thought about this, but if you haven't thought about this, just double check yourself whenever you're at the holiday, at the family function or wherever you're at. If somebody made something versus it being even store-bought, check how it tastes.
Right.
Listen to yourself about how it feels.
I think you and I also talked about, I think you and I talked about even the research that they've done on water.
Yeah.
Right.
We tapped on that just a little bit. We didn't go too far.
So think about somebody who is creating a meal. Typically there's water involved, and the energy that is given into that water is mixed into your food, which obviously you digest. So that's a whole other ball game. But I'm just throwing that out there. That's something you Michelle and I might hit on at some point. But again, the different energy that goes into it. So again, not demonizing your food doesn't mean you have to eat everything in sight, but I also think that, kind of giving yourself permission to have a good time is kind of where that goes.
Absolutely.
So,
let's talk about not feeling guilty again because I really think this needs to be tapped on just a little bit more. It's my own personal thought, but, not feeling guilty about spending the money. There are so many financial constraints right now going on, and I completely understand, but don't feel obligated. Don't feel like you've got to pour all of this out, put yourself in debt. For what purpose?
Correct. Yes.
What was the purpose in putting yourself in debt whenever you could have made something? You could have cooked something. Cooking something and giving it to somebody is so much more cheaper than, going out and buying them a wrapped up box of something. And you made it, and you made it with love. And that was the best part. They will be so happy to receive something like that versus something from the store. Don't put yourself in debt.
Yeah. No. That's not a great way to start off in 2023.
Especially if you're trying to go into a healthier version of yourself. I mean, this is a great opportunity to really, as I tell a lot of my clients, this is a great opportunity to check yourself. We go over all these key points. How much have you spent in the past and why did you spend it? Let's stop all that. Let's get where we really need to be. And this is what this is all about. We want you to have fun this holiday season. We want you to take all these key little points and, just really take them to some type of heart.
Yeah. I would like to touch a little bit on the fact that some people who don't have a lot monetarily to give back as far as gifts and things, I think that can be challenging for them to accept gifts.
It's true. Very true.
But I would like to also throw in there, be okay with that, because that person, I can guarantee you, I'm going to say 99.9%, they're not expecting something in return. If you provided something, I'm sure they would be thrilled. But so I'm saying that because I've seen people say, well, don't give me anything. And it really is not reflective. It's just reflective on the fact that they don't feel financially able to give back.
Right.
So I think that when someone's giving you a gift, to make sure that you kind of discipline your emotions a little bit and accept the gift and feel honored about it. and kind of be okay with accepting gifts, because you have to. What the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is a time to celebrate, and I think that when you kind of put these boundaries down due to your own insecurities, they're not a healthy boundary. That you're actually kind of destroying someone else's celebration, because
Right.
they're trying to celebrate you,
Right.
and you won't have anything to do with it. So,
Just be
um,
accepting.
right, because me and my sister, oh my gosh, we love Christmas. We call each other D Elf and K Elf. So I'm elf number one, she's elf number two. But I think that that's our time to celebrate. And so we kind of go, this is the time of year where we go a little, I'm not going to say financially wild, but we definitely get into our roles of like, she'll check in and say, how is E1 doing with her elf duties or what have you. So it's just fun, but we like to celebrate during this time. And so I just kind of point that out because it's a time, even if you feel financially strapped this year, doesn't mean you can't stop. You have to stop celebrating. There's
Right.
so many different ways to do it. Like, again, like what we talked about before, could be making gifts. It could be just spending time with people. It could be giving back to yourself. There's so many different things to do. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Try not to dampen other people's way of celebrating you or the season
Right.
when you're feeling a little bit maybe insecure or feeling like you can't give back enough, and just kind of checking in with yourself a little bit in that way, so that you approach situations, environments, parties, or what have you, with a really great mindset of just giving back that way. So I just
And
wanted
being
to touch
something
on
of
that
the
a little bit.
conversation too, because
Mhm.
if it comes into a conversation where, you're saying, well, I just really don't have, it's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay. Accept the conversation and invite it, and let them love on you. Let them
Mhm.
explain to you, because that's another way of letting some emotions actually flow and understanding just how much somebody really does care for somebody.
Right.
Which is a great time, of this year to really express that. So,
Mhm.
know you're loved, know that you're wanted, and
Right.
it's all that was necessary was that you showed up. So,
Mhm. Yep.
all right. So, now let's go on to integrate.
Mhm. People are like, what does that mean?
Right. What are we talking about here? So,
So I do kind of want to hit on this one. I kind of wanted to start off on this one because this is the one that I refrained from sharing my 2 cents a little earlier. Um, but we talked about maybe going to a party or something where you feel, like kind of just being inquisitive about somebody, just kind of breaking the ice or what have you. One thing that I did want to mention earlier was maybe some of your older relatives and things like that. It doesn't even have to be a relative, but I think sometimes we miss that opportunity. So the reason why that we call this integrate is to weave in and out of people's lives, I think, because I think that our older parents or older grandparents have so many stories, so much wisdom, I think, to offer. Their life experiences can provide wisdom. So whether they made good decisions, bad decisions, or what have you. But I think a lot of times we don't even bother asking, and I think it's such a great time because the family does typically come together at this time to value what they offer to your family and to society, because I think we skip over them sometimes. I think it's just such a great opportunity to do that, to celebrate them, but just by even just having a conversation with them, to value what they went through, their hardships, their successes, or what have you. I'm sure that they're like, you don't know everything that has happened, and if you do, I think you're a lucky person, because I think sometimes that a lot of our elderly really gets looked over. So I think it's a great opportunity to kind of check in with them, and again, asking about their life and valuing what they've gone through, and etc. So anyway, that's kind of the point that I wanted to make earlier
no, I want to
about.
get to that because
Mhm.
being a nurse for 33 years now, I want to invite people to also see that that is a great opportunity to go to the nursing homes. If you are looking to serve out into your community during that time frame, during these time frames of holidays and things like that, there are so many so many older women and men who don't have family. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they were literally dropped off in the nursing home by a family member or by a guardian ad litem. And they don't have someone to come and see them on a regular basis. And during the holidays, that is the worst time for them. They usually become very anxious, very depressed, very moody. They cry a lot
Mm-hmm.
because they remember how they had things and then now they don't. So if you are wanting to do any kind of serving at all, or maybe put yourself out there just a little bit, you know, to want to serve others or even sit down and listen. My son is notorious for this. He loves to go to the nursing home and sit down and talk to older people. He loves to just hear them talk.
Mm-hmm.
He'll start a conversation with, "Hi, how are you?" And the next thing you know, they're talking about how they were in World War II or they were, you know, here or wherever they were. He loves that stuff. So
Look how easy that was. Hi, how are you?
it was simple. I mean, he just
Yeah.
literally will sit down and be like, "Hi, how are you?" You know, and then the next thing you know, it's
Yeah.
just generated into this huge conversation. He's learned more about history with other people than he has in his own history books at school. So it's amazing. They got great conversations to offer. They
Mm-hmm.
have so much to tell, and they don't get to tell it on a regular basis. They don't.
No.
So take an opportunity just one time. I mean, don't let it frighten you because it's not scary at all. They are very, you know, emotional, loving people who just want someone to talk to 9 times out of 10, you know, and who
Mm-hmm.
knows, you may strike up a great conversation and want to keep going back and they will love you for it, you know,
Yes.
and hopefully it opens up your heart and makes you feel better too.
Mm-hmm. You know, and you and I had talked about kind of getting back to humanity,
Right.
you know,
Right.
because I think that the things that we value as a society, like we kind of all need to start looking at that. I think that and I'm just going to touch on this, just like you said, a lot of elderly are dropped off and never see their families in because we don't value them.
Right.
Uh, they have so much to offer, and I think that we completely dismiss them. So I'm going to leave that there, but you know, because there are people who literally get dropped off at nursing homes and they are never visited again. But
That's
also just even in your
depressing.
just even in your own family, though, I think that you know I kind of wanted to touch on this too because, like I said, when you go somewhere and you're asking people, you have family members and stuff that you may not know very well. So it's a
Right.
great opportunity to just kind of again refocus your time and your energy into somebody who maybe you don't know like what their life was about. So it might be a great opportunity to do that, to find out about them. And, you know, it might be very fascinating. So,
You might learn some things you really didn't know about your own family.
right.
Take an opportunity.
So I'm going to throw this out there. I found out that I think my grandfather, he was, I think I don't even know if I should say this. I'm going to say it because I think it's hysterical. He was a bank robber at one point. So he had the Tommy guns and everything. Like it was,
Oh, wow.
he was like kind of blockaded in a barn. Like it just reminded me of those old films, like
Right.
back in the day, you know, when they wore suspenders and like he's got his Tommy gun in his old car, like that type of a thing. And I was laughing because ironically enough, his son ended up becoming a sheriff.
Oh,
So
well, that's interesting.
yeah. So it's to me, it's funny because I'm like, oh, that's kind of ironic. You know, I think I met him once or twice just because of where he lived and just family splits and stuff like that. But the way I found out about it was sitting around a table, I think during the holidays, listening to my uncle, who is his son, talk about him. So yeah,
I mean,
enjoy.
that's
Have
interesting.
fun.
You can learn about your family if you're really sitting down. I just learned over the Thanksgiving holidays. I had no idea, but I learned that my whole history of my family past, when they were bootleggers. I'm
Mhm.
like, what?
Yeah.
My mom was like, "You didn't know that?" I'm like, "No one ever spoke a word about them. Why am I learning it now?" She's like, "Yeah, that's how they made their money back in the day. That's why they were up on that hill over there. They had all the distillery." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, and that's like you just don't know, you know, like take
No,
some time. And you
no.
know, in all honesty, like even if you did visit somebody in a home or something. They have these same stories, guys. It's
Oh, yeah.
really interesting stuff. And it's interesting to hear how they lived through it or experienced it, or they, there's all kinds of things. I remember he was a German teacher in our high school. But he also taught economics. So I had him as for my economics, but I am not kidding you. Now, picture a classroom full of high schoolers, okay? He was the best storyteller, and they were true stories, but he would talk about Germans trying to escape, and I'm not kidding you. We were all like this, every single one of us, just listening to him.
That's cool.
He was the best. I mean, he was fascinating. He just had a way of just telling the story. So I'm just
So you
saying
can
it was
visually
just,
see it.
oh my God, it was great. Yeah, it was. I still remember the stories that he told. Like I had zero association with any of the people that he was talking about. It was so interesting. And
Right.
remember, I was in high school
Right.
where attention span was like, when are we eating?
Very
When's lunch? When are we getting out of here? You know
right.
what I
What are
mean?
we doing out here? When's the
And
bell gonna ring?
on top of it being an economics class, like you could just kind of visualize how that would be. So,
The most boringest class.
right. So yeah, he was fantastic. So just, you could be one of those people, or you could get connected with one of those people. So
Well, here's the thing. If you don't know a lot about your family, ask. Just
yeah.
ask. I mean, maybe you've got some people who don't want to talk about certain things. I completely understand that. But find the ones that do want to tell you, because
Mhm.
the stories can be endless.
Yeah.
They can be fascinating. And not only that, but you might learn some things about maybe why you are the way you are
Mm-hmm.
through
Get some
that
insight.
conversation. I mean, you may kind of get a glimpse of, okay, well, now I see where I get it from, or maybe I understand now why I am the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
These are great conversations to have. I mean, it's not just about learning your medical history. Learn your history.
It can provide some great insight, good or bad, right?
Really
It's
can.
just
I've learned
Mhm.
some things maybe I didn't want to know, but
You know
I've
what though,
also
but I think like knowledge is power,
it
in all
is
honesty. Like it's, like I said, good or bad, it helps give you perspective. It helps kind of help you navigate through maybe some things that your family experienced, or even friends. Like, oh my gosh, this person went through this. Maybe asking advice later, like, oh, this person went through this and I'm going through something similar. That would be a great person to talk to. So there's always something to gain from it. And you know what? You may be providing that to somebody. So don't forget about yourself. Like you're also providing. We're all integrate. So that's such a great topic,
we're
because
all integrating
you
our
are part of the integration. You are part of the
right.
weave. So don't forget about that, because that's super important too. And that's part of valuing yourself as well as valuing the people around you, and having that value come back to you, you giving it back. So again, we're celebrating this time, and I think that's a really great thing to focus on, is valuing one another, not just the money aspect of this
Right.
holiday.
Right.
So, you know,
Take that out of the equation.
yeah, and in all honesty, I'm just gonna say it. Sometimes it's great to buy a really great gift for somebody if you can do it. You
If you can
know,
do it.
yeah, if you
If
can
you
do it,
want to do it,
but
yes.
it's but it's not a requirement. There's so many
Right.
different ways to do things, and
Right.
again, connection. So there you go. But
Yep. All right. So the next topic we had was stress. No, it doesn't cause no stress during this time frame. Not at all.
I was like, sarcasm just really entered my brain right there. So
Right.
yeah.
And it is a stressful time. It really is. I mean, I'm going to give you a perfect example, Deana. I've got snow moving in. I don't know if we're going to be able to have Christmas. So my mom and dad are probably not going to be able to make it in. My son's probably not going to be able to make it in.
Oh
They're
boy.
calling for a foot of snow, starting on Thursday morning, going all the way into Friday night. So highly unlikely. So here I am. I'm upset, of course. So now it's kind of causing some anxiety, things like that. But guess what? I'm not going to look at it that way. There's always another time that we can hold Christmas.
Yeah.
We can come together some other time when the weather's not bad. But for a lot of people, this is a very stressful time. This is a time that they don't want to do the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that do not really care for Christmas, and it can be for so many different reasons.
Yeah. I think, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Chime in.
was just going to say, like, we've touched on a lot of this, but I think that it's such a great time to realize, again, I'm going to go back to that you do have control. And I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say that you just have to do this or you just have to do that, because I know that there's very serious depressions that happen,
Absolutely.
anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to diminish those feelings, etc. However, if you do have it within you to at least start thinking about or creating your own traditions, your own environments, your own experiences during this time, even if it's small. So I'm going to use this as an example, because when I moved to Missouri a couple years ago by myself, I made a list of holidays and I thought, you know what, I'm going to create a new tradition for myself for fun, because I didn't have family around me. And 9 times out of 10, I wasn't going to be going home. So, like, for instance, I did some research on my own and I looked up, like, New Year's Eve, a lot of foods, which we talked about in our last podcast. Some foods, like circular foods, are known for the new year, celebrated in certain parts of the world because they represent life, circle of life type of a thing. So sometimes when you think about January 1st, you're looking at a new cycle. Okay. So I thought, well, what's round that I like? Well, donuts. It's like, I'm going to go get me a donut every January 1st. So, but that's kind of what I started to do, like, for my personal tradition. In order to have fun, I went and got a donut because it was my circle of life and I'm starting a new year. And that's how I celebrated the coming into the new year. But it was fun for me because I don't have a sweet tooth, but I love donuts. I'm not going to deny a donut if it's in front of me. So, which is weird because I don't have like a huge sweet tooth.
But no.
But again, it's just kind of like getting creative with yourself. Again, I'm not going to say that it's not challenging, that it's not difficult. And I know, again, I'm going to repeat that there are some very serious feelings and situations that can go on during this time. So again, I'm not saying it's just as easy as creating a tradition, but if you are in a time or a space that you feel like you might think that might be fun or something like that, I'd encourage you to do that. Because again, you're honoring yourself. And even if you're not doing it with other people, at least you're providing that to you, which is a great thing. It's a good thing to do. So
you're serving yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there, that it's a good time to maybe start that or think about it. But anyway, so Michelle and I were talking, how this time of year can bring about depression, anxiety, suicide. Hate to say that, but it's true. And then on top of having the guilt and the financial burden, I think sometimes that we place on ourselves. So trying to figure out where you are in that and navigate through that. And hopefully some of the things we've already mentioned today can help you get through some of that, or just change your mindset about it a little bit, might help with that a little bit. Hopefully that would be great. So anyway, I'll let Michelle kind of dive back in here, but I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
No, I thought that was great, and if anyone is having issues and suffering during this time, please know you can reach out to us at any point in time. We do have the capability for you to contact us. We leave all of our links in our podcast. Deana's awesome about attaching our links. So if you need anything, reach out, and please use the new service of 988. If you haven't already been aware of that, use the service of 988 so that you can reach out to someone and talk to somebody and let them know, that you need some help. We hope that you take this podcast and put yourself into a different frame of mind as you go into the holidays, and give yourself some grace to move slowly into your next chapter. So that's what we're hoping for. And if you love this podcast, please, let us know, put it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we have 2 more that we'd like to tap on. Let's talk about this awesome winter weather and how winter just plays such a great role on where we're at and what we're doing in life. So,
oh my God, this is going to be a good one, because I think you and I are polar opposites. No pun intended.
I am a warm weather person. I've got to have my palm trees, my beaches, my sand, my sun, and that cold weather. No, I'm done. I'm over this already.
Oh, that's funny. I'm like, bring on the snow. I want to wear my beanies.
I'll
Yeah.
train you.
Well, it's funny because that's why I say, oh, that's why I live in an ice rink. But I do love that part of Christmas. Like we don't get snow here, but like the other morning it was uh frost, all over everything because it was very cold. But like last year we got a light dusting, but I lived in Colorado for a while. Beautiful, beautiful snows. And it was just like, to me, it energizes me. But again, and other people, it does not energize them. If anything, we talk about, oops, I almost knocked some things over. But how sometimes the weather, the dreariness, like it thundered and stormed today, and I was like, woo, and other people might be, oh my God, I can't wait for this to get over with. I think that's a thing to definitely pay attention to for yourself and how it affects you, because it can make a huge difference in how your season goes.
Right.
So I think that's, I have a friend who I was in college with who, is it seasonal affect disorder? Is that what it's called?
I have seasonal affect disorder. Yeah, it's called SAD.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do well during the winter months at all. So it's just not a happy time for me. It's a very overcast time for me. But, you have to learn how to paddle your way through it. You do know that there are sunshines during the winter months,
Yeah, and I did want to point out, she actually has a lamp that she uses that helps her. I don't know what it's called, but there are some lamps that you can get that kind of help kind of reverse that. I think it has to do with UV rays or something.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just going to say it. I don't know a ton about it, but I remember her talking about that. But I think too, kind of looking at it differently. I keep talking about reframing your mindset, but that seasons could be very interesting. If you look at them almost in a spiritual sense, they're there for a time and a place and a reason. I think of kind of like fall, and we're prepping for something beautiful to come.
Which is what winter is all about. It's the prep time for when we're going to go into our season of growth.
And going dormant. Yeah. Right. So I always think of planting seeds, because sometimes those seeds, in order to be the best that they can be in the spring and the summer, is that they have to be cold.
Right.
And they have to lay dormant in order to become their best.
Right.
And so I'm just saying, kind of changing your mindset. There's always a reason, like kind of embracing what's around you at the time and learning how to, I guess cope is a good word, but I feel like cope is also a word where you're just kind of getting through something, but just maybe finding a way to celebrate the season or the gloom, I guess you can say, because I don't look at it as gloom. I look at it as a good reason to cuddle up and read my book. Read my book and stuff. So
it's a great time for hot cocoa and
yeah,
on top. So I'm good with
bundle
that.
up, to cuddle. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could go on. But
I mean, during the winter months, it's just, to me, it's more of a spiritual time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at the winter months. It's a spiritual time for you to come to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like we've talked about, self-care is so overly used, but it is a great time for you to come to yourself and actually assess yourself and see where you're at, where would you like to be, and then spend that time preparing for when spring comes, so that you can just bloom out. That's the way I look at it.
Perfect way to put it, because I think so many people go into planning goals, or I guess you can say coming up with resolutions, which again, we're going to talk about it.
We don't say that word.
Yeah. But just, so my point though is that it's a time to think about how you're going to ignite yourself in the coming months. So it's a great time to go dormant a little bit. That's why a lot of people take time off during this time of year, and they recharge. Right. So it is a great time to do that, whether it's rain or shine or what have you. Go on vacation, then go to the Bahamas. Again, that's another way to kind of take control of your environment is if you just literally can't stand the cold weather and stuff, go somewhere that's warm for Christmas.
Right.
You know, it's not a bad thing.
If you can, but again, don't feel like you've got to put that all out there, you know,
Mhm.
because if you can't do it, you can't do
Yeah.
it. That's okay. Find a different way to rebirth yourself.
Have a beach day in your house.
Oh, absolutely.
Have a have a sun
Absolutely.
have a have a have
Go
a
grab
beach
a sun
party,
lamp or something and
right? I
go
mean,
put
get
your piece
creative. There's so many different things. Create, like, again, the sky's the limit, you know, but if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this snow or whatever, have a fun day where you decorate your living room or something with the kids and have like a beach party in the middle of winter. Like,
right.
you know,
Great opportunity to, you know, really crack out away from all
yeah,
of the gloom and doom, as you call it. So,
right.
All right. So our last one is cleansing. This is our last one. So,
Mhm.
cleansing can be so many different things, but I'm going to tap on it from the nourishment side. I mean, I know that there's a lot of cleansing things out there and so forth, but I want you to take an opportunity to just assess yourself again. I mean,
Mhm.
seriously, where you're at, what you're doing, where would you like to be?
Mhm.
And then again, how would you like to get there? So take some time over these next couple of weeks and just really look at where you've been and maybe the difficulties that you've had over this time frame and put down on paper,
Mhm.
where is it that you would like to really be in 2023? And I'm not talking about resolutions here. I'm talking about you as a person on the nourishment side of things relating to food, okay? Because food is such a hot topic when we go into these next few weeks. And I don't want anyone to feel like they are pressuring themselves to do something that they really aren't ready to do. You've
Yeah.
really got to assess yourself to see if you're ready to do where you want to be.
Mhm. And you know, again, it doesn't have to be a huge move in the beginning, and that's why I think when you and I get back on here, hopefully in January, to talk about how to do this, that's going to be a great topic to discuss. But I also wanted to say it's a great time just to do simple acts like drink more water, because this is a time when people
Right.
don't, like, especially you live in a cold climate. We don't typically grab the cold water out of the fridge, you know, and
It's a
also,
perfect time to grab the cold water out of the fridge and drink
right,
it because the body's actually using more of
right.
your water
No,
during
I'm
this
saying
time
people just don't. People,
frame.
because it's cold, they won't reach for it as
Right.
often. But I think, like, hydration, I think it's a time to rest. You have more time off, hopefully.
Yeah.
And just go get your nails done, go get your hair done, go get a massage, go get, you know, take care of yourself, journal, do yoga, go to the gym,
Go
you
do
know, if
something you want
that's
to do
exactly. I
to
was
take
gonna
care of
say,
yourself.
go kayaking, go, you know what I mean? Like, go do what you want.
Go do
Start a
it.
new project, learn something new, or what have you. But it's just take some time for yourself and start, you know, making sure you spend that time with yourself, whether it's an afternoon, a day, or what have you, or even an hour, or treat yourself to a movie or whatever it is for you, because it's different for everybody. But I think it's just something super important to kind of think of. And I think what Michelle hit on too is maybe it's a great time to think about new habits to kind of embrace even now, or you know, in the coming year, that you're like, man, I'd really like to do XYZ and kind of stick to it, type of a thing. Or, you know, that's, I know overall it's going to be better for me in the long run, or whatever it is.
But
So
don't
it
make
could
it
be,
something difficult. Make it something simple in the beginning
mhm,
because small goals that get reached give us a dopamine and serotonin reuptake
mhm.
that we don't realize it
Which I
and
wanted to hit on that.
until we've actually accomplished that goal. And it's like, oh, wow, I got that. I
Mhm.
did that.
So
And it
just to,
just sets
yeah.
off the tone.
So just to give you a little hint, I would say, even if you have a big goal, don't get rid of the big goal. I
Right.
think as we discuss it in January, we are going to discuss how to break it down into bite-sized pieces so that you constantly experience what Michelle's talking about, of getting that dopamine, hitting those milestones frequently, so that you create a momentum. I think that's kind of the biggest problem, I think, sometimes when we try to change and do things, that we're all ready to go, and it lasts about a week, or maybe if you're lucky, it lasts about a month,
It'll last a
right?
month. Right.
But then you start fizzling out, which could be another topic that we talk about. But the thing is how do you create something that is going to be long lasting? And that's something that we're going to talk about in January. But I just wanted to touch base on that because some of you might have some lofty goals coming up, which is awesome, but they could seem so far out there, unattainable. So we're going to talk about how to make them attainable, like I said, in bite-sized pieces, so that you constantly feel like you're succeeding. So that's a really important thing to kind of think about and know how to tackle, so that you don't always feel like, well, I've tried this 6 other times and I can't do it, or what have you. So, but any hoodles, yeah. That's
all right. So we tapped into all 10 of our healthy tips for the holiday season. And Deana and I, we hope that you got something out of this podcast that will charge you in a direction that is healthier, that is happier, that creates more of a safety situation for you, whatever the case may be. Remember boundaries. Remember obligation. You're not obligated. Remember that just showing up sometimes is absolutely the best thing that anyone could ask for. And make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation where you're not really, happy to be there, or that you put yourself in a situation where you handed somebody something and you felt obligated to do that. Don't do that. We talked about all this. Whatever you captured from this podcast, please put it in the comments. Let us know what was good. Maybe something we didn't tap on that you think we should have. We can turn that into another podcast for you, and we can highlight that. But definitely going into the holiday season, Deana and I are so grateful for each and every one of you who've listened to us. I personally want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Deana and I will be back in January. I think we've kind of tapped out there what's going to be coming.
Yes.
I think we kind of tapped on some of those points, and we look forward to the podcast. So if there's anything you'd like to hear, maybe there's some topics you would like for us to address, let us know. And Deana, go ahead, take it away and wrap us up.
Well, I was just going to say, too, if you have any ideas maybe for other people, as well as some creative ideas, just add those into the comments, too, because it's always fun to see what maybe you do, or if you have ideas for something, because it's always good to share those things and pass it along. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody in January. Thank you so much for listening and supporting us. We're super grateful. And we will see you next time on Two Peas in a Podcast. So thank you so much. Bye.